Look, I've been covering this team for a long time, and I can't remember the last time I heard a head coach say a second-year player is on a Hall of Fame trajectory before training camp even starts. But that's exactly what Jim Harbaugh just said about Joe Alt. And honestly, it's got me wondering if we're about to witness something special, or if this coaching staff is setting expectations so high that even a Pro Bowl season might feel like a disappointment. But before we dive in, let's talk about what we're actually looking at here. We're still in the no pads phase of the offseason. OTAs, minicamp, basically glorified practice in shorts. So when coaches are this excited about what they're seeing, when players are getting singled out for praise, and when guys are reportedly showing up at 5 a.m. to get extra work in, that tells us something about the culture shift happening in this building. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. Let's start with the elephant in the room, Joe Alt, and these absolutely wild expectations being placed on him. Jim Harbaugh didn't just say Alt looks good. He didn't just say he's improved. The man said he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Think about that for a second. Hall of Fame for a right tackle going into his second season. And now, I get it. Alt was solid as a rookie. Definitely one of the better first-year tackles we've seen recently. But Hall of Fame talk, that's reserved for guys like Anthony Munoz, Jonathan Ogden, and the absolute elite of the elite. And here's Harbaugh throwing that around like it's nothing. But it's not just Harbaugh getting carried away. Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, said he sees Alt as a hands-down All-Pro this year, not a candidate, not someone who could make a push. Hands-down All-Pro. The confidence is almost unsettling. What's driving this optimism? Well, Alt has had an entire offseason to focus solely on right tackle. Remember, he was a left tackle in college, had to flip sides as a rookie, and still managed to hold his own. Now he's had months to refine his technique, add weight to his frame, and according to Roman, he's transformed from Clifford the Big Red Dog into someone with legitimate man strength. The physical tools were always there. You don't go 5th overall without elite athleticism. But what seems to have impressed the coaching staff is his dedication. Apparently, Alt came in the day after the season ended with a list of everything he wanted to improve. That's the kind of mentality that separates good players from great ones. Here's my take. The hype might be overblown, but it's not baseless. When you're 6 feet 8 inches with legitimate athletic ability, and you're putting in that kind of work, combined with having a full year of NFL experience under your belt, yeah, a significant jump is possible. Will he be Hall of Fame caliber in year 2? Probably not. But could he be a legitimate All-Pro candidate? I'm starting to think maybe. While everyone's talking about Alt, the guy who might actually be having the best offseason is Oronde Gadsden. This is a player who was barely on the radar coming into the season, and now he's getting first-team reps and catching passes from Justin Herbert. What's impressive isn't just that he's making plays, it's how he's going about it. We're talking about a guy who shows up at 5 a.m. before anyone else is in the building except security. That's the kind of work ethic that catches coaches' attention, but more importantly, it's paying off on the field. 7 catches in 1 practice, including a couple of chunk plays. That might not sound like much, but in the context of OTAs where everything is scripted and limited, that's significant production. And the fact that he's building chemistry with Herbert, that's invaluable for a young tight end trying to carve out a role. Now let's be realistic here. Gadsden is thriving in the exact conditions you'd expect him to. No pads, limited contact, situations that favor pass-catching tight ends. The real test comes when the pads go on and he has to prove he can block well enough to stay on the field without telegraphing that it's a passing play. But here's what I like about what we're hearing. The coaching staff isn't just praising his athleticism or his hands. They're talking about his work ethic and his willingness to do whatever it takes to contribute. That's coachable. That's the foundation you build on. Speaking of building on foundations, let's talk about Tarheeb Still. This kid had 4 interceptions as a rookie, which is impressive enough, but apparently he did it while playing with a broken bone in his hand. Jim Harbaugh has mentioned this multiple times now, almost like he's trying to make sure we understand that Still's rookie season was actually him playing hurt. If that's true, and if he's healthy now, what does that mean for year 2? The coaching staff is putting him in the same category as Alt when they talk about ascending players. Derwin James is calling him a future All-Pro. The hype is real. But here's the thing with Still. We know what he needs to work on. The ball skills are elite, the instincts are there, but the tackling and run support have been inconsistent. That's not unusual for a young corner, but in today's NFL, you can't have a liability against the run. What's encouraging is that the coaches say his effort has been relentless, and he's been putting in extra work with Khalil Mack. When you have a young player who's already had success but is still hungry to improve, that's when you can see dramatic jumps in performance. Okay, now here's a guy nobody saw coming. Josh Taylor was basically written off after last season. I mean, a 146.8 passer rating allowed? That's almost unplayable. Most of us figured he'd be cut before training camp, but apparently there's more to the story. Harbaugh has been emphasizing that Taylor was dealing with a broken bone for most of last season, similar to Still's situation. If that's accurate, it explains a lot about why he looked so bad on the field. The fact that Taylor is now being mentioned as an ascending player by Harbaugh is remarkable. From potential cut candidate to someone the coaching staff is genuinely excited about. That's quite the turnaround. Of course, we need to see it translate to the field. Taylor wasn't exactly setting the world on fire before his injury-plagued season either, but the Chargers need depth in the secondary. And if Taylor can return to even average play, that's a significant win for the roster construction. Okay, here's another name that probably wasn't on your radar, Stevo Klotz, an undrafted free agent tight end who's apparently been making some noise. What's interesting about Clots is that he's the opposite of Gadsden in terms of skill set. Where Gadsden is the pass-catching threat, Clots is supposed to be the physical blocker. But what's caught everyone's attention is that he's been making catches too. 5 receptions in a practice, according to reports, for a guy whose calling card is supposed to be blocking. Showing receiving skills is huge for his roster chances. The timing is interesting too, with Scott Matlock potentially focusing more on his defensive tackle role and less on fullback duties. That could open up opportunities for someone like Clots to fill that physical blocking-focused role in the offense. Remember, not everyone can be a winner, and there are some concerning developments worth discussing. Keandre Lambert-Smith, the 5th-round receiver, has been dealing with injuries and missing valuable practice time. In a receiver room that's gotten significantly more crowded with additions, missing reps is the last thing a young player can afford. The availability factor is huge with this coaching staff. They value guys who are on the field every day, and when you're not able to participate, you fall behind. Lambert-Smith isn't in any immediate danger, but he's starting behind 8 ball. Andre James represents another type of offseason loser, the veteran who's seeing his opportunity slip away. Coming into the offseason, there was hope that James could compete for the starting center job. But based on everything we're hearing, it sounds like the competition is really between Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman, with James relegated to backup duty. That's disappointing because James has actually played center at a decent level in the past. But it seems like the coaching staff has already made up their mind about the direction they want to go. Finally, we have to talk about Brendan Rice and Kamani Vidal, 2 players who aren't necessarily playing poorly, but are victims of roster construction. Rice is fighting for a spot in the receiver room that has added 3 new players. Vidal went from potentially being a significant contributor to fighting for carries behind multiple additions. So what do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment section.